Welcome back to another video. Thank all of you who have liked and subscribed to this channel. Thank you especially to the people from my Facebook group, Puget Sound History. Many candy makers have come and gone in the Puget Sound. One of those remaining is Tacoma's Brown and Haley. Our story begins at church in 1908 when candy maker Harry Brown met a former salesman from Schilling Spice Company. Jonathan Clifford Haley, or JC as he was known, had just moved to Tacoma from Ohio for a new start. Over the next 4 years, their friendship grew and they discussed opening a candy business together. In 1912, they began to build a company that would endure for over 100 years and counting. They incorporated their new venture in 1914 and called it Oriole Candy Company. Frank Mars, who would later develop Snickers, Mars Bar, M&M's, Milky Way, started his company in Tacoma in 1911. He moved to Minnesota in 1920 because of competition from Brown and Haley. The first unique creation for Oriole that really caught on was called the Mount Tacoma Bar, first created in 1915. Mount Tacoma Bar, later changed to Mountain Bar, is chocolate with nuts with a vanilla cream center. World War I brought many soldiers to Camp Lewis, now Joint Base Lewis McChord. They brought a lot of candy from Brown and Haley, and by the end of the war in 1918, they were looking for a bigger factory. In 1919, they moved into a large manufacturing building built in 1902, formerly a shoe factory, located at 108 through 116 East 26th Street, where they have been ever since. They also changed their name to Brown and Haley that year. After the war ended, the Army base population dwindled and people went back home and back to work. Sales slowed and Brown and Haley knew they needed to create something no one else had. The Mountain Bar was selling well, but they needed another unique item. At the time, English toffee was sold in slabs that you had to break off. Harry Brown figured a way to make it smaller, yet not stick together, so it could be packaged and then could be stored and shipped further. He poured chocolate over a small piece and rolled them in almonds. In 1923, Almond Roca was introduced to the public, and it is now sold in over 30 countries. A local librarian named Jacqueline Knoll proposed the name Roca, which means rock in Spanish. As most almonds came from Spain at that time, it made even more sense. People loved the candy right away. The problem was that the candy would turn rancid after a short time. Now it was Haley's time to shine. He saw how coffee was packaged at the time, in metal airtight tins. So in 1927, Brown and Haley began putting Almond Roca in airtight tins, and they lasted on the shelf 3 times longer. That put Almond Roca in the record book as the first candy packaged in a tin. The tins were like the old Spam tin. They used a key that you put into a thin piece of steel and you turned it, and it would remove a steel band around the tin to unseal its airtight goodness. Their slogan was, "Candy so good we lock it up tight." Almond Roca became a local treat up until the start of World War II. Sugar was rationed, so they dropped from 20 different candies to just their top 2, Mountain Bars and Almond Roca. Because of the airtight tins and the long shelf life, Brown and Haley were able to sign a contract with the United States War Department, cementing their place in history and around the world as the leader in the industry. In 1944, during the war, the Brown family sold their part of the business to the Haley family. It would now be run by J.C. Haley's son Fred. So many were sold and eaten by military personnel that the government wrote a chapter about Almond Roca in a historical study they produced about World War II. Generals refused to hand over an occupied country to other Allied forces until they were guaranteed that 3 railroad cars of Almond Rocas could be taken with them. After the war, the people who had been introduced to the product overseas wanted it in their hometown, and Brown and Haley soon shipped across the states. At the end of the war, they dropped their Cherry Bounce bar and created the Cherry Mountain Bar. In 1962, they had a building from the 1963, they had a building from the 1962 World's Fair put in the parking lot. They then used it as a factory store. The building was originally going to be converted to a beach house after the fair. Peanut Butter Mountain Bar was introduced to the public in 1974 and instantly added to the Mountain Bar sales. Also that year, Fred Haley expanded to start exporting Almond Roca to countries it had once served during the war. Fred Haley wanted to regain the areas that they served during World War II. Japan was the first export with an order for $250,000 worth of Almond Roca. J.C. Haley's grandson Mark would take over next in 1984, just 10 years after his dad Fred had started exporting to Japan. They now exported to 40 countries, and export made up to 20% of its business. Brown and Haley were now producing 400,000 pounds of Almond Roca each day. Mark Haley set out to make Brown and Haley known for more than just Almond Roca. In 1990, they introduced Belgian creams. With over 12 varieties, they were an instant success. He also redesigned the packaging to showcase the Brown and Haley name more. By the late 1990s, Almond Roca was sold in 63 countries. Since Mark took the reins in 1984, production had doubled by the late 90s to 800,000 pieces of Almond Roca per day. By the late 90s, Almond Roca was the number one gift candy in the United States. By 2016, 40% of all Almond Roca made was exported. They also had other flavors of Almond Roca: macadamia nut, cashew, peppermint, and sugar-free. Almond Roca was a big hit in China. In the Cantonese language, Roca can mean happy family. Also, the golden foil wrappers in pink and red packaging are considered a sign of upcoming success. Brown and Haley is now the third largest manufacturer of boxed chocolates in the United States. Unlike Nellie's, it has survived over 100 years and still employs around 260 people. I wish them the best and hope they will continue to be here for another 100 years. Please subscribe if you would like to see more videos about local history. Until then, stay safe and make your own history.